Don't forget how the Soviet Union saved the world from Hitler. By 1943, the Soviet Union had already lost some 5 million soldiers and two-thirds of its industrial capacity to the Nazi advance. That it was yet able to turn back the German invasion is testament to the courage of the Soviet war effort. But it came at a shocking price. In his memoirs, Eisenhower was appalled by the extent of the carnage. When we flew into Russia, in 1945, I did not see a house standing between the western borders of the country and the area around Moscow. Through this overrun region, Marshal Zhukov told me, so many numbers of women, children and old men had been killed that the Russian government would never be able to estimate the total. To be sure, as Snyder documents, the Soviet Union under Stalin also had the blood of millions on its hands. In the years preceding World War II, Stalinist purges led to the death and starvation of millions. The horrors were compounded by the Nazi invasion. In Soviet Ukraine, Soviet Belarus, and the Leningrad district, lands where the Stalinist regime had starved and shot some 4 million people in the previous 8 years, German forces managed to starve and shoot even more in half the time, Snyder writes. He says that between 1933 and 1945 in the Bloodlands, the broad sweep of territory on the periphery of the Soviet and Nazi realms, some 14 million civilians were killed. By some accounts, 60% of Soviet households lost a member of their nuclear family. For Russia's neighbors, it's hard to separate the Soviet triumph from the decades of Cold War domination that followed. One can also lament the way the sacrifices of the past inform the muscular Russian nationalism now peddled by Putin and his Kremlin allies. But we shouldn't forget how the Soviets won World War II in Europe.